In an age where science can decode the secrets of our very DNA, where forensics can track a killer from a single strand of hair, you'd think justice would be inevitable. But what happens when evidence is lost? Witnesses vanish, and the truth gets buried beneath years of silence? From high-profile celebrity cases to heartbreaking murders that never made the front page, India's justice system has left too many stories unfinished. Too many families waiting for answers that never came. For every culprit left uncuffed, there's a family still searching for closure. Today, we honor the victims of passion, greed, jealousy, and injustice. These are 14 chilling unsolved crimes that still haunt the nation. Stories that refuse to fade and deserve to be heard. This is not just true crime. This is a reminder. Madras Presidency, 1943. While the silver screen shimmered with fame, one man dared to dig into the shadows behind the spotlight. C.N. Lakshmikanthan, not an actor, not a director, but a journalist whose pen wielded more power than a reel of film. His magazine, Cinema Thuthu, didn't review films, it exposed lives. The affairs, scandals, secrets of Tamil cinema's elite were laid bare for all to read. His fame and infamy soared. And so did his enemies. When he was briefly shut down, Lakshmikanthan came back stronger with a new publication, Hindu Nezan. Armed with his own printing press, he was unstoppable until someone decided to stop him. November 8, 1944. While returning home in a hand-pulled rickshaw, Lakshmikanthan was brutally attacked. A knife plunged into his left side. Yet somehow bleeding, gasping, he made it to his lawyer's house. He survived the night, but not the next. He died the following day at Madras General Hospital. What followed shocked the nation. Film icons M.K. Thyagaraja Bhagavathar and N.S. Krishnan, among the biggest stars of Tamil cinema, were arrested. So was a director, S.M. Sriramalu Naidu. Naidu was acquitted, but Bhagavathar and Krishnan found guilty, convicted. Years later, the courts overturned their sentences. They were innocent all along, and the real killer? Never found, never named. A mystery inked in the dark alleys of fame, fear, and betrayal. On a quiet January night in 1984, deep in Kerala's heartland, a chilling plan took shape. Sukumar Kurup, a man obsessed with wealth and escape, conspired with his co-brother, driver, and aide to murder an innocent man named Chaco. Chosen for one eerie reason, he looked just like Kurup. After intoxicating, poisoning, and strangling Chaco, they burned his body inside a car, staging Kurup's own death in a bid to claim 8 Indian rupees locks and life insurance. But the police saw through the lie, arresting Kurup's accomplices and uncovering the truth. Yet Kurup himself slipped away, vanishing without a trace, leaving behind a crime that shocked the nation and a mystery that continues to haunt it. For over 4 decades, Sukumar Kurup has remained India's most wanted fugitive, a man who killed to become a ghost. Between 1985 and 1989, 2 of India's largest cities, Mumbai and Calcutta, were haunted by a nameless terror, known only as the Stoneman. This elusive killer stalked the city streets at night, targeting the most vulnerable, homeless men sleeping alone in the open. His method was as brutal as it was silent. He crushed their skulls with a massive stone, vanishing before anyone could see him. 13 people were killed in Calcutta, and at least a dozen in Mumbai before the killings mysteriously stopped. Was it one man moving between cities? A gang? Or chilling copycats inspired by each other's cruelty? No one knows. Despite years of investigation, no suspect was ever arrested, no motive ever confirmed. And to this day, the Stoneman remains a faceless ghost, India's most terrifying urban phantom. From the dusty lanes of rural Punjab to packed concert stages, Amar Singh Chamkila rose like a meteor, his voice raw, his lyrics unapologetic. Born Dhani Ram Singh into a life of poverty, he found his calling in music, capturing the everyday pulse of Punjabi village life, its desires, vices, and contradictions. To some, he was a bold social commentator. To others, a provocateur pushing cultural boundaries. But love him or hate him, Chamkila had become a legend. Then, on March 8, 1988, as he arrived in Maysamper for a performance with his wife Amarjot, the music stopped. In broad daylight, a group of motorcyclists gunned down the couple and their team in a coordinated ambush. No warning, no mercy, and no suspects ever caught. Rumors swirled, blaming radical Sikh militants who allegedly found his lyrics offensive, but nothing was ever proven. To this day, the murder of Punjab's most electrifying folk star remains an unsolved mystery, one silenced voice echoing through generations. In 1999, the world of Indian journalism was rocked by a brutal murder. Shivani Bhatnagar, a principal correspondent with the Indian Express and part of its special investigative team, was found dead in her East Delhi apartment. The scene showed no forced entry, suggesting the killers were either known to her or knew how to deceive. Her apartment had been ransacked, yet what the intruders sought remains a mystery. Shivani wasn't just a reporter, she was a fearless investigator who exposed scams that shook powerful political and bureaucratic foundations. Soon, suspicion fell on high-ranking IPS officer Ravikant Sharma. Prosecutors claimed Shivani was in possession of sensitive legal documents leaked by Sharma himself, possibly linked to the explosive street kits case. When she refused to return them, it allegedly led to a deadly fallout. Sharma, however, spun a different narrative. He admitted to a personal relationship with Shivani and suggested that the motive was not political, but deeply personal, a fear of public exposure, of disgrace. As the case unfolded in court, it became a battleground of conflicting stories, scandalous revelations, and vanishing truths. And after years of legal drama, Ravikant Sharma walked free, acquitted for lack of evidence. To this day, the murder of Shivani Bhatnagar remains cloaked in mystery, with justice as elusive as the secrets she once uncovered. From humble beginnings to global fame, P. Rajagopal built an empire. Born into a low-caste family, he defied every societal barrier to create a wildly successful chain of restaurants, drawing in crowds and opening his first international branch by 2000. But behind the gleaming facade of prosperity lay a darker obsession. According to the Madras High Court, Rajagopal became fixated on a woman named Jeevajyothi, already in love and married to Santhakumar. When the couple eloped in 1999, Rajagopal refused to let go. What followed was a twisted pursuit that ended in tragedy. On October 31, 2001, Santhakumar's lifeless body was discovered, the cause, asphyxia. One of Rajagopal's loyal employees, Daniel, was tied to the murder, convicted, and later vanished while out on bail. In 2004, Rajagopal himself was sentenced to 10 years in prison, though he served only 8 months before being released on medical grounds. By the end of that year, his restaurant empire had ballooned to 29 locations worldwide. But justice hadn't finished with him yet. In 2009, the Madras High Court escalated his conviction to murder, sentencing him to life in prison. Just 3 months into that term, Rajagopal was out on bail again, pending a Supreme Court hearing that, to this day, remains in limbo. A man who cooked up global success, but whose darkest recipe may never truly be accounted for. On the evening of May 9, 2003, the Sharma family's quiet life in Kashapuram, New Delhi, was shattered forever. 7-year-old Garima, the daughter of Narendra Kumar Sharma, an accountant with the Delhi Development Authority, had stepped out to buy candies from a nearby shop, a simple, innocent errand no one imagined would be her last. As minutes turned to hours and Garima didn't return, panic gripped the household. Neighbors joined the desperate search, scouring the streets and alleys. Then, around 10 p.m., came the devastating discovery: Garima's lifeless body was found in the colony park, her head brutally smashed against a wall. No witnesses, no suspects, no clear motive, just an unimaginable act of violence against a child and a family left with questions that still echo through the years. Despite investigations, the killer remains unidentified. And over 2 decades later, Garima's case stands as one of Delhi's most haunting unsolved crimes, a tiny life stolen, with justice still out of reach. In 2006, the bustling heart of Mumbai turned sinister as a string of brutal murders unfolded between Churchgate and Marine lines. 7 victims, cab drivers, homeless men, were found murdered in cold blood, often stripped from the waist down, their bodies showing signs of excessive violence. One man had nearly 20 stab wounds. And near 2 of the crime scenes, a chilling calling card, empty Kingfisher beer cans. The press gave him a name that stuck, the Beer Man. As panic swept through the city, police assembled an 80-member task force to hunt the phantom killer. Then, a breakthrough, a sniffer dog led investigators to a public toilet at Marine Line Station, where a gray shirt and a trail of clues pointed to 36-year-old Ravindra Cantrell, a former gangster with a violent past and a disturbing craving for blood. His handwriting matched a note left at a scene. A chopper and blood-stained shirt were recovered. Under interrogation, Cantrell confessed not to 7 murders, but to 15. He claimed he was high on charas, driven by bloodlust, and denied any sexual assault. But despite the confession, evidence fell short in court. In 2009, Cantrell was released due to lack of admissible proof. And with that, the city was left wondering, was the Beer Man truly caught? Or was the real killer still out there, hidden in the shadows of Mumbai's crowded streets? On July 20th, 2007, a quiet neighborhood in Dombivli, Maharashtra, was shaken by a tragedy that no one saw coming. Snell Gaware, a bright young engineering student recovering from a leg injury, vanished without a trace. When her mother returned home that day, Snell was missing. The next morning, the horror was unveiled. Snell's lifeless body was found in her own bed, bound hand and foot, her mouth gagged, silenced forever in what should have been the safety of her own home. Shock soon turned to suspicion, and eyes fell on her boyfriend, who had since left for the United States to pursue further studies. Months later, he was arrested, sparking media frenzy and public speculation. But in a disappointing twist, the case against him collapsed due to what authorities called insufficient evidence. And just like that, the only suspect walked free. To this day, no one knows who killed Snell Gaware or why. What remains is a family broken, a community haunted, and yet another young life lost to a mystery that the justice system has yet to solve. The tragic tale of 30-year-old Rizwana Rahman is a chilling blend of love, class, religion, and power, and a mystery that still refuses to rest. A humble computer graphics trainer from a modest Muslim household, Rizwan fell in love with a wealthy Hindu woman from one of Kolkata's most influential families. They married in secret, crossing the lines of caste, class, and faith. But when her father, a powerful industrialist, discovered the union, he allegedly used his influence to tear them apart. Rizwan was threatened, harassed, and dragged into repeated police interrogations, accused of kidnapping his own wife. Still, he refused to give in. He let her visit her family, on the condition, signed in front of police, that she would return in 7 days. She never did. Days later, Rizwan was blocked from contacting her. Witnesses were intimidated. And on September 21, 2007, Rizwana Rahman was found dead beside a railway track, hands folded over his chest, a gash on the back of his head. Before an autopsy could be conducted, Kolkata's top cop declared it a simple suicide, sparking a public uproar. Evidence surfaced that the police commissioner had met with the girl's family, allegedly promising to separate the couple. Rizwan's final days, chronicled in his diary and desperate letters to NGOs, told the story of a man cornered by a system that should have protected him. Murder or suicide, no one knows for sure. But one thing is certain. Rizwana Rahman died fighting for love in a society that still struggles to accept it. On November 20, 2008, the city of Chennai awoke to a blood-soaked mystery. Saravanan, his wife Kasturi, and their domestic help in Barasi were found brutally stabbed to death in their home. The scene on the second floor was horrific. Multiple stab wounds, almirahs thrown open, signs of a desperate search. Yet oddly, the jewelry worn by both women remained untouched, while valuables within the house were missing. It looked like a murder-cum-robbery, but the story didn't quite add up. Police zeroed in on a call taxi driver named Satish Kumar and several of Saravanan's former drivers, but the investigation was riddled with inconsistencies. Crucial documents and properties weren't accounted for, missing valuables went unmentioned in official reports, and the list of suspects seemed more speculative than solid. Then came a damning twist. Assistant Commissioner Setharaman, the officer in charge of the case, was convicted of accepting bribes. With that, the already fragile integrity of the investigation collapsed. What could have been a straightforward search for justice turned into a case corrupted from the inside. And once again, we're left with questions that sting far beyond the crime itself. How can we trust a system that can be bought? A system willing to bury truth in exchange for silence and a handful of gold? The chilling double murder of 14-year-old Aarushi Talwar and the family's domestic help, Hemraj Band Jade, in May 2008 sent shockwaves across the nation, not just for its brutality, but for the whirlwind of controversy that followed. What began as a family tragedy soon spiraled into a media circus, with whispers of betrayal, cover-ups, and a justice system more interested in closing the case than solving it. At first, Hemraj was believed to be the killer, until his decomposing body was found on the terrace a day later. What followed was a stunning series of blunders: tampered fingerprints, missing photos, botched evidence, and contradictory narratives. The Noida police floated a salacious theory with no proof, accusing Aarushi's own father, Dr. Rajesh Talwar, of murder in a supposed fit of rage. Later, 3 of Hemraj's acquaintances were arrested, only to be released due to lack of evidence. Then came the biggest twist. Aarushi's parents were convicted in 2013, despite a case full of loopholes, weak forensic work, and speculative claims. It felt less like a judgment and more like a desperate attempt to end the chaos. But in 2017, the Allahabad High Court overturned the conviction, citing insufficient evidence. If Rajesh and Nupur Talwar were not the killers, the truth becomes even more terrifying, because it means the real murderer is still out there, while a grieving family was vilified for nearly a decade. A murder mystery buried under media frenzy and investigative failure, and a reminder that sometimes justice is not only blind, but dangerously misled. On June 11, 2015, what began as a call about smoke from a Kolkata apartment led police into one of the most disturbing crime scenes in recent Indian memory, a real-life horror that echoed the chilling tones of Psycho. Inside the De family's upscale home, officers found the charred remains of 77-year-old Arabindada in the bathroom, and in a locked bedroom, the skeleton of his daughter, Debjani. Alongside them, 2 bags filled with dog bones. The most disturbing revelation? Debjani had been dead for 6 months, and her brother, Partha, had been living with her corpse all the time. He left food beside her, spoke to her spirit, and kept detailed diary entries filled with grief, confusion, and disturbing delusions. It was clear Partha's mind was unraveling. Traumatized by the deaths of their beloved dogs, and later his sister, he retreated into a world of silence and decay. His father, unaware until months later, may have chosen self-immolation as a final escape. The family had long since cut themselves off from society, and their reclusive existence only deepened the mystery. Their diaries hinted at psychological wounds, sexual tension, resentment, and isolation, but with Partha declared mentally unstable, it's impossible to separate reality from hallucination. The De house wasn't just a crime scene, it was a crumbling monument to loneliness, repression, and untreated mental illness. And while the flames were extinguished, the shadows they left behind continued to haunt.